The snow fell relentlessly over Harrington Manor, blanketing the English countryside in a shroud of white silence. It was December 1935, and the isolated estate perched on a windswept hill seemed cut off from the world. Inside the grand hall, flickering firelight danced on the faces of the gathered family. Lord Archibald Harrington, the tyrannical patriarch, raised his glass in a toast, his voice booming, "To loyalty, may it never falter." But as the clock struck midnight, a scream pierced the night. In his locked study, Lord Harrington lay slumped over his desk, a dagger in his chest, blood staining the snow-dusted windowsill. Who among his kin had betrayed him? The storm raged on, trapping all within, and with them the famed detective Hercule Poirot, who had arrived unannounced. Chapter 1. The Gathering Storm. The snow fell in thick, deliberate sheets, as though the heavens themselves had decided to smother Harrington Manor beneath a quilt of silence. It was the 23rd of December, 1935, and the estate, perched like a brooding eagle upon its frost-bitten hill, had been cut off from the world for 3 days. No post, no telephone, no visitors save one. Hercule Poirot, the little Belgian detective whose mustaches were as immaculate as his reputation, and who had arrived the previous afternoon in a motor car that now lay half buried beneath a drift at the gate. Poirot stood before the drawing-room fire, hands clasped behind his back, watching the flames perform their restless ballet across the logs. The room smelled of beeswax, holly, and the faint metallic tang of fear. Around him, the Harrington family moved like actors upon a stage whose script had been torn to pieces. Lord Archibald Harrington had been alive at 11 o'clock. At midnight, Eliza Thorne, the maid whose eyes were too old for her 19 years, had heard a sound like a sack of meal striking the floor. She had run to the study, rattled the locked door, and screamed. By the time the others arrived with candles and curses, the master of the house was slumped across his desk, a dagger buried to the hilt between his shoulder blades, blood pooling like spilled claret upon the blotter. The window stood ajar. Snow had drifted across the sill in a perfect, untouched fan. No footprints marred the virgin crust outside. The key to the study door reposed quite properly in the dead man's waistcoat pocket. Poirot had examined the corpse with the detachment of a watchmaker inspecting a broken escapement. The wound was precise, delivered from above and behind, suggesting either great height or a stool. The dagger was a family relic, a Malay kris with a wavy blade and a hilt of carved ivory kept upon the mantel in the billiard room. Someone had removed it, used it, and returned it to its sheath of snow and silence. Now in the drawing room, the survivors gathered like mismatched chess pieces upon a board where the king had been toppled. Lady Evelyn Harrington sat upon the chaise longue, spine straight as a ruler, gloved fingers worrying the jet beads at her throat. She was 42, though grief and powder contrived to make her appear younger. Her hair was the color of winter wheat, her eyes the pale, unforgiving blue of glacier ice. She had been reading in the conservatory when the scream came, or so she claimed. Her gown of midnight velvet bore no trace of snow, yet Poirot noted the faint tremor in her left hand, a tremor that ceased the moment she realized she was observed. Beside the fireplace, Reginald Harrington, 28, dissolute and already half drunk despite the hour, leaned against the mantel with the careless grace of a man who had long ago ceased to care what the world thought of him. His dinner jacket was unbuttoned, his tie askew, and the scent of gin clung to him like a second skin. He had quarreled with his father that evening. Half the household had heard the raised voices through the study door. "The old man threatened to cut me off without a shilling," he had snarled when questioned. "But I left him breathing. Curse his miserly soul." Victoria Harrington, 19, beautiful and brittle as spun glass, stood at the window, staring out at the storm as though it might offer her an escape. Her gown of palest green silk shimmered whenever she moved, and the firelight caught the gold in her hair. She had been playing patience in the morning room, she said. Though the cards lay abandoned upon the table, the Queen of Spades face up like an accusation. Poirot had noticed a faint bruise upon her wrist, half hidden by a bracelet of sapphires, sapphires that matched the ones in her father's cufflinks, now stained with his blood. Dr. Marcus Blackwood, the family physician and Lord Harrington's erstwhile business partner, occupied the wing chair with the calm of a man accustomed to crises. He was 35, tall, dark, and impeccably tailored. His hands, surgeon's hands, rested upon his knees with the stillness of carved marble. He claimed to have been in the billiard room practicing solitary shots when the murder occurred. The cue chalk upon his fingers was blue, not red, yet Poirot's sharp eyes had noted a smear of something darker beneath the nail of his right index finger. Blood, or merely the residue of the storm. Eliza Thorne hovered near the door, apron clutched in her fists, her face the color of skimmed milk. She had discovered the body, she had screamed, she had fainted, or so she said. Yet Poirot observed that her shoes were damp at the toes, and there was a smear of ink upon her cuff that looked suspiciously like the green-black fluid from Lord Harrington's fountain pen. Ink, or blood diluted by melted snow. The room was heavy with unspoken accusations. Outside, the wind moaned like a mourning woman, rattling the leaded panes. Inside, the grandfather clock in the hall struck 2, each chime a hammer blow upon the nerves of the assembled company. Poirot cleared his throat, a small, precise sound that nevertheless commanded silence. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his English flawless but spiced with the faintest trace of a Belgian accent. "We find ourselves in what the English call a pretty pickle. A man is dead, stabbed in a room locked from within with no trace of the assassin's passage through the snow. Yet assassins, like taxes, are inevitable. Let us therefore proceed with order and method." He paced before the fire, hands clasped behind his back, the light glinting upon the patent leather of his shoes. First, the facts. Lord Harrington was alive at 11 o'clock when Eliza brought him his nightly glass of whiskey and soda. At midnight, she heard the sound of his fall. Between those hours, who entered the study? Lady Evelyn lifted her chin. No one. The door was locked when we arrived. Yet someone entered, Poirot countered gently, and someone left. The window was open, but the snow upon the sill is undisturbed. Curious, n'est-ce pas? Reginald snorted. Perhaps the old devil stabbed himself. Wouldn't put it past him. Anything to spite us. Victoria turned from the window, her voice sharp as broken crystal. Don't be grotesque, Reggie. Father was murdered. Someone in this room hated him enough to... To what, ma petite? Poirot interjected softly. To risk the gallows, to brave the storm, to plan with such precision that even the snow conspires to hide their tracks? Dr. Blackwood stirred. The wound was delivered with considerable force, a woman's strength perhaps, but unlikely. And the angle suggests the killer stood upon something, a chair, a stool. Or, Poirot mused, the victim was already bending forward when the blow was struck. Over his desk, perhaps, signing a document. A will, peut-être? Lady Evelyn's gloved hand flew to her throat. You go too far, Monsieur Poirot. Do I? The detective's green eyes gleamed. Lord Harrington summoned me here 2 days ago with a telegram. Urgent. Fear for my life. Betrayal within. Yet when I arrived, he greeted me with civility and said the matter could wait until after Christmas. Why the delay? Why the locked door? Why the dagger returned to its place as though nothing had occurred? Eliza's voice came small from the doorway. Begging your pardon, sir, but the master was writing letters before dinner. I saw the blotter through the keyhole. and there was a gentleman's glove upon the floor, brown leather monogrammed with an R. Reginald's face drained of color. "That's a lie. I lost a glove days ago." "Convenient," murmured Victoria. Poirot raised a hand for silence. "The glove is a detail. Let us return to the study. The dagger. Where was it kept?" "In the billiard room," Blackwood supplied. "Upon the mantel in a glass case. The key to the case hangs upon a nail beside the cue rack." "And who has access to the billiard room?" "Anyone," Reginald said bitterly. "It's not locked. Father liked to think of himself as a sportsman." Poirot nodded. "Then the weapon was chosen for convenience, not sentiment. Yet the choice of a crease is curious, exotic, theatrical. One might almost say, staged." He crossed to the window, peering out at the endless white. The snow began at dusk. By midnight it was a foot deep. To leave no prints, the killer must either have flown— He permitted himself a tiny smile, or never left the house at all. Lady Evelyn rose, her voice brittle. "You suggest one of us—" "I suggest nothing, madam. I observe. And what I observe is this: fear. Fear in every face, fear in every gesture. Fear of the storm, yes, but also fear of the truth." The fire crackled. Somewhere in the house a door slammed, though there was no draft. Eliza jumped, her apron rustling like dry leaves. Poirot turned back to the room. "Let us reconstruct the evening. At 11 o'clock, Eliza brings the whiskey. Lord Harrington is alone. The door is not yet locked. We know this because Eliza saw the glove through the keyhole. At some point thereafter, the door is locked from within. The window is opened. The dagger is brought from the billiard room. By whom? And why?" He paused, letting the questions hang in the air like smoke. "Consider the motives," he continued. "Lord Harrington was not a beloved man. He was rich, yes, but riches bought him obedience, not affection. Lady Evelyn, forgive me, has endured a marriage of convenience these 20 years. Reginald is drowning in debts. Victoria wishes to marry against her father's wishes. Dr. Blackwood's family was ruined by a business venture with Lord Harrington 20 years ago. And Eliza," Poirot's gaze settled upon the maid, "Eliza is the cuckoo in the nest, is she not? The child of a dalliance kept on as a servant out of guilt or cruelty." Eliza's eyes filled with tears, but she did not deny it. "Each of you had reason," Poirot said softly, "but only one had opportunity. And opportunity, mes amis, is the key that unlocks even the most stubborn door." He moved to the door of the drawing room, pausing upon the threshold. "For now we are prisoners of the storm. But storms pass, and when they do, the snow will melt and the footprints will appear. Until then, I suggest you remain within sight of one another. The killer, you see, may not be finished." As he stepped into the corridor, a folded paper slipped from the pocket of the coat hanging upon the stand, Lord Harrington's coat still damp from the snow. Poirot stooped, unfolded it, and read the single line scrawled in a shaking hand. "The betrayal is closer than you think. Trust no one, not even the snow." He tucked the note into his waistcoat and glanced back at the drawing room. 5 faces stared after him, each a mask of guilt or terror. The wind howled anew, and somewhere in the upper floors a shutter banged like a gunshot. Poirot's mustaches twitched. The game, as the English said, was afoot. Chapter 2. Shadows of the Past. Poirot stood alone in the library, the crumpled letter trembling between his manicured fingers. The paper was heavy vellum, the ink still faintly damp, written then in the hours before death. A single sheet, folded twice, addressed in Lord Harrington's spidery hand. Monsieur Hercule Poirot, Harrington Manor, by hand. The message was terse, almost frantic. I fear for my life. Betrayal lurks in my own home. Come at once. Do not trust the post. No signature beyond the initial A. Poirot turned the paper to the firelight. The watermark was the Harrington crest. 3 stags rampant upon a field of snow. He sniffed delicately, the scent of bergamot and fear. The envelope had been sealed with black wax, the impression of a signet ring. The same ring now lay cold upon the dead man's finger. Footsteps approached, soft, deliberate. Poirot slipped the letter into his breast pocket just as Lady Evelyn appeared in the doorway, a silhouette against the candlelit corridor. Her gown rustled like dry leaves. Her face was a mask of porcelain composure. "You are up late, madame," Poirot observed. "Sleep is impossible after this." She hesitated, then entered, closing the door with a click that sounded unnaturally loud. "My husband was not a good man, Monsieur Poirot. But he did not deserve—" Her voice cracked. She steadied it with visible effort. "The will. You mentioned the will." "Précisément." Poirot gestured to the leather armchair opposite the fire. "Please." She sat spine rigid. "Archibald revised it 6 weeks ago. I saw the draft. Everything to Victoria, provided she marries suitably. Reginald gets the London house, mortgaged to the hilt, and a trust fund he cannot touch until he is 40. I received the dower house and an annuity, but there is a codicil." She leaned forward, voice dropping. "If any heir is proved disloyal, debts, scandal, disobedience, the estate passes to charity, the Salvation Army of all things." Poirot's eyebrows ascended. "A powerful incentive for loyalty, non? Or for murder?" Lady Evelyn's gloved fingers twisted the jet beads. "Reginald's debts exceed £20,000. Victoria wishes to elope with—" She stopped, lips compressing. "With Dr. Blackwood?" Poirot supplied gently. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "You are perceptive. Archibald forbade it. Marcus's father was ruined by one of Archibald's schemes in 14. The boy swore revenge, but love complicates vengeance." A log shifted in the grate, sending up a shower of sparks. Poirot watched them die. "And you, madame? What do you inherit from freedom?" For a moment her mask slipped. Raw hunger flickered in the glacier eyes. "Peace," she whispered. Then louder, "I was in the conservatory reading. The glass is thick. I heard nothing until Eliza screamed." Poirot nodded, filing the detail away. He rose, crossing to the window. The snow had eased to a lazy swirl. Moonlight silvered the drifts. "Tell me of the dagger, the crease." "It belonged to Archibald's uncle, brought back from Malaya in 98. He was proud of it, kept it polished, though he never used the billiard room himself. Curious choice for a murder weapon then. Theatrical, almost personal." Footsteps again, heavier this time. Reginald lurched into the library, flask in hand, eyes bloodshot. "Still playing detective, Poirot? Father's dead. Let the police scrape him off the blotter when the road's clear." "Your grief is overwhelming, monsieur," Poirot murmured. Reginald laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "He cut me off last month. Said I was a disgrace. I told him—" He stopped, swaying. "I told him I'd see him in hell first." "And did you?" Poirot asked softly. Reginald's face purpled. "I left the study at 10:30. Ask Victoria. She saw me go to the billiard room. I was there until the scream." Poirot made a mental note. "Verify with Victoria." He moved to the door, pausing. "One more thing. The glove Eliza saw. Monogrammed R, yours?" "Lost a pair last week," Reginald muttered. "Probably in the snow." "Convenient," Poirot echoed Victoria's earlier barb and left them staring at each other across the fire. In the corridor he encountered Victoria herself, lurking in the shadows like a guilty child. Moonlight through the stained glass window painted her face in fractured blues and reds. "Monsieur Poirot," she whispered, "may I speak with you?" He inclined his head. They retreated to the morning room where the abandoned patient's card still lay. The Queen of Spades stared up accusingly. "I lied," Victoria said without preamble. "I was not here at 11. I was in the conservatory with Marcus, Dr. Blackwood. We argued. Father had threatened to send me to a convent if I didn't end it." Her fingers touched the bruise on her wrist. "He grabbed me, hard. I pulled away and ran upstairs. I was in my room when Eliza screamed." Poirot studied her. "And Dr. Blackwood?" "He went to the billiard room, said he needed to think, but—" She hesitated. "I saw him later near the study, just a glimpse. He had snow on his shoes." Poirot's mustache twitched. "You are certain?" "As certain as I am that I loved him." Her voice broke. "Please don't let them hang him for my father's sins." Poirot patted her hand. "Truth, mademoiselle, is the only mercy." He left her weeping over the cards and sought Dr. Blackwood in the billiard room. The doctor was chalking a cue with mechanical precision, though the table was untouched. "You are a man of science, doctor," Poirot began. "Tell me, could a woman deliver such a blow?" Blackwood's eyes flicked up, dark and unreadable. "With leverage, yes. A stool, perhaps, but the angle—" He demonstrated with the cue striking downward. "The killer was taller, or the victim was seated low." "Lord Harrington was standing when struck," Poirot corrected. "The blood spatter on the desk suggests it." Blackwood paled. "Then the killer used the chair, stood upon it." "Possible, but the chair was upright, undisturbed." Poirot circled the table. "You were here alone?" "Until the scream." Blackwood's voice was steady, but his knuckles whitened on the cue. "And your shoes?" Poirot asked softly. "Mademoiselle Victoria saw snow upon them." A muscle jumped in Blackwood's jaw. "I stepped outside for air, the storm, yet no footprints lead from the billiard room door." Poirot's tone was gentle, inexorable. "You are lying, doctor. Why?" Blackwood slammed the cue down. "Because I went to the study at 11:15. Harrington was alive, ranting about Victoria. I told him I'd marry her regardless. He laughed, said he'd see me ruined first. I left. The door was open then." Poirot absorbed this. "And the dagger?" "Still in its case." Blackwood's gaze was defiant. "I swear it." Poirot nodded, filing away the contradiction. He returned to the hall where Eliza was polishing the banister with unnecessary vigor. Her eyes were red-rimmed. "You heard arguments, ma petite?" She nodded, trembling. "The master and Master Reginald shouting about money, then Miss Victoria crying, then Dr. Blackwood, something about blood for blood." Poirot's interest sharpened. "Exact words." "Your father took everything from mine. Now I'll take his daughter." Eliza wrung the cloth. "I shouldn't repeat—" "You must." Poirot's voice was kind but firm. "And the ink on your apron?" Eliza flushed. I was copying recipes for cook. The master's pen leaked." Poirot examined the stain. Green-black, identical to the study's ink. He sniffed. Bergamot, like the letter. Curious. As he turned away, a glint caught his eye. Beneath the hall table, half hidden by a rug, lay a single brown leather glove. Monogrammed "R" damp with melted snow. Poirot picked it up, turning it in the firelight. Inside the cuff, a faint smear, dark, sticky. Blood? He tucked the glove into his pocket beside the letter. The house creaked around him, old bones settling in the cold. Somewhere upstairs, a door closed softly. Poirot looked toward the staircase. The shadows lengthened, and in the silence between heartbeats he heard it. The faint, deliberate crunch of footsteps in fresh snow, directly beneath the study window. Yet when he flung open the front door, the drifts were pristine, untouched. The killer, it seemed, walked through walls. Chapter 3. Whispers in the hall. Dawn arrived late, a sullen gray smear behind the curtains. The storm had paused as though gathering strength for a final assault. Hercule Poirot stood at the study window, gloved hands clasped behind his back, surveying the impossible. Fresh footprints, sharp-edged, deep, marched from the manor's west wall to the exact spot beneath the study sill. There they stopped. No return trail, no scuffle, no wings. The snow beyond was a blank page, untouched by man or beast. The prints were those of a man's boot, size 10, with a distinctive V-shaped notch in the left heel. Poirot knelt, measured with his pocket rule. 8 inches from heel to toe, the stride confident, unhurried. Someone had walked to the window and simply vanished. He straightened, mustaches bristling with indignation. Mon Dieu, this is not a murder, it is a conjuring trick. Behind him, the study door creaked. Dr. Marcus Blackwood entered, coat dusted with snow, face pale as the drifts outside. "I heard you moving about," he said. "The footprints. You have seen them?" Poirot's eyes were sharp. Blackwood nodded. "I rose early to check the generator. They weren't there at 6. He hesitated. "I wear a size 10 boot." Poirot's gaze flicked to the doctor's feet, polished Oxfords, no snow. "Yet you are dry, doctor, explain." "I changed shoes in the scullery." Blackwood's voice was steady, but his pulse beat visibly at his throat. "Ask Eliza, she was stoking the range." Poirot made a mental note. "Verify with maid." He turned back to the prince. "The snow ceased at 4. These are fresh, made within the last hour. Someone left the house after dawn, walked here and poof." He snapped his fingers. "Disappeared. Unless," his eyes narrowed, "unless they never left the ground." He examined the sill. Snow undisturbed, yet a faint smear of melted water trailed across the parquet to the hearth. The trail ended at the fireplace, where ashes had been recently raked. Poirot knelt, sifted the cinders with a poker. Something glinted. Brass. A button, military issue, engraved with a crest, 3 stags rampant. Harrington's crest. "Curious," Poirot murmured. "The killer discards evidence in the fire, yet leaves footprints to taunt us." Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Lady Evelyn appeared, wrapped in a sable coat, eyes red-rimmed but composed. "The police telephoned from the village," she announced. "Roads blocked until tomorrow at earliest. We are marooned." "Marooned with a murderer," Reginald added, entering behind her. He carried a tray of coffee, hands trembling so violently the cups rattled. "Drink up, everyone. Might as well die caffeinated." Victoria followed, pale in a dressing gown of peach silk. "I couldn't sleep," she whispered. "I keep seeing Father's face." "Spare us the histrionics," Reginald snapped. "You hated him as much as any of us." "Enough," Poirot's voice cut like a scalpel. "We will breakfast together in the dining room. No one leaves sight of the others, compris?" They assembled around the mahogany table, Eliza serving in silence. The coffee was strong, the toast burnt. Cook had fled to her sister's before the storm. Conversation was a minefield. Poirot buttered a slice with precision. "Let us speak of motives, mes amis. Lord Harrington was not beloved. Who benefits most from his death?" Lady Evelyn set down her cup. "The will. We know the will," Reginald interrupted. "Victoria gets the lion's share, provided she doesn't marry her doctor's pet." Victoria flushed. "I told Father I'd elope. He laughed, said he'd cut me off without a penny." "And you?" Poirot turned to Blackwood. "Your father's ruin, 20 years ago, no? A shipping venture that sank with all hands. Lord Harrington profited while your family starved." Blackwood's jaw tightened. Ancient history. History repeats, Poirot said softly, especially when laced with revenge. Eliza, clearing plates, dropped a spoon. It clattered like a gunshot. Beg pardon, she mumbled, but Poirot noted her hands, ink-stained still and trembling. Ma petite, he said kindly. You mentioned a gentleman's glove, monogrammed R. Where is it now? Eliza paled. I left it on the master's desk, for the police. Yet it is gone, Poirot said. Vanished like our phantom walker, curious. Reginald pushed back his chair. This is intolerable. I'm going to the billiard room. You will stay, Poirot commanded, until we examine alibis. Lady Evelyn, conservatory reading. What book? She hesitated. Dickens, Bleak House. Ironic, Poirot murmured. Reginald, billiard room after the argument. Alone? Until Victoria burst in at 11:30, hysterical. Said father threatened to lock her in her room. Victoria nodded. It's true, I ran to Marcus, Dr. Blackwood. He calmed me. Blackwood stirred sugar into his coffee, though it was already sweet. She left at 11:40. I remained practicing shots until the scream. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Yet Eliza saw you near the study at 11:50 carrying your medical bag. Blackwood froze. I checked on Lord Harrington. He was alive, working. I left. Liar, Reginald said flatly. I passed the study at 11:45. Door locked, light off. Silence descended, thick as the snow outside. Poirot rose. We will reconstruct. Now. They trooped to the study. Poirot positioned them. Reginald at the door, Victoria by the window, Blackwood at the desk. Eliza, bring the master's appointment book. The maid returned, book in hand. Poirot flipped pages, 23rd of December, 11 p.m. Meeting with R. The ink was fresh, smudged. R. Poirot mused. Reginald, or another. Reginald snatched the book. That's not my writing, Victoria gasped. It's father's hand. But he never wrote appointments at night. Poirot examined the page under a magnifying glass. The ink, green-black like Eliza's apron, and the pressure. He pointed. A woman's hand lighter. Eliza? The maid backed away. I only copied recipes. Recipes for murder? Blackwood asked coldly. Eliza burst into tears. Master promised to acknowledge me. In the will. But he laughed, said I was a mistake. I hated him. Poirot raised a hand. Hatred is not proof, but forgery. He turned to Reginald. Your debts, monsieur. £20,000. To whom? Reginald's face crumpled. Moneylenders, sharks. They threatened to break my knees. And you forged your father's signature on a check? Reginald nodded miserably. Last week, he found out, threatened to turn me over to the police. Victoria whispered. I helped him. I distracted father while Reggie searched the desk. Blackwood laughed bitterly. So the prodigal son and daughter conspire, and I'm the scapegoat because of an old grudge. Poirot's voice was silk over steel. Not yet, doctor. Your bag, may I? Blackwood hesitated, then handed it over. Poirot opened it. Stethoscope, morphine vials, a small bottle labeled digitalis. Heart medicine, Blackwood said, for Lady Evelyn. Yet traces were in Lord Harrington's whiskey glass, Poirot revealed. A slow poison. Digitalis accumulates. The dagger was insurance. Lady Evelyn stood. You accuse me? I accuse no one, Poirot said. I observe. The perfume on the dagger, your perfume, madame. The glove planted in the snow, Reginald's, but the blood inside is type O. Lord Harrington was type A. Blackwood's eyes widened. Then whose? Yours, doctor, Poirot said softly. You cut your finger on the crease when you removed it from its case. The blood smeared the glove, planted to implicate Reginald. Blackwood lunged for the door. Reginald tackled him. They struggled, crashing into the desk. A drawer flew open, spilling papers, and a second dagger identical to the first, its blade stained dark. Poirot seized it. The murder weapon! The kriss in the body was a duplicate, swapped to confuse timing. Eliza screamed. Victoria fainted. Lady Evelyn stood frozen, hand to her throat. Poirot held the dagger aloft. The footprints, the glove, the poison, all red herrings. But the real clue? He pointed to the fireplace. The brass button, from a military greatcoat. Who wears such a coat? All eyes turned to Blackwood, who had served in the war. The doctor sagged. It was an accident, he whispered. Harrington laughed at me, at Victoria. I grabbed the kriss from the billiard room. He turned, I struck. Then, panic. But the footprints? Poirot pressed. Blackwood smiled bitterly. I walked backward in my own prints from the scullery door, used a stick to smooth the snow. Child's play. Poirot nodded. The conjuring trick revealed, but one thing remains. A gunshot shattered the silence. The window exploded inward, snow swirling like confetti. Victoria's body jerked, blood blooming on her silk gown. She crumpled, eyes wide in surprise. Outside, the footprints had a companion set, leading away into the storm. The killer, it seemed, was not finished. Chapter 4, The Midnight Alarm. The gunshot cracked like a whip. Glass exploded inward, snow spiraled through the study in a white cyclone. Victoria Harrington folded at the knees, a red rose blooming on the peach silk over her heart. She hit the carpet with a soft, final thud. For one heartbeat, the room was a tableau. Poirot frozen with the duplicate dagger aloft, Blackwood pinned beneath Reginald, Lady Evelyn's mouth a perfect O, Eliza's scream still forming. Then chaos. Reginald rolled off Blackwood, scrabbling for Victoria. "Vicky, God, no!" Lady Evelyn sank to the chaise, gloved hands pressed to her lips. Eliza bolted for the door, apron flapping like a surrender flag. Blackwood lunged for his medical bag, scattering vials. "Pressure, now!" Poirot was already kneeling, 2 fingers at Victoria's throat. Pulse, thready, frantic. Blood pulsed between her ribs in rhythmic spurts. "Arterial," he snapped. "Towels, Eliza." The maid hesitated, then fled and returned with linens. Poirot folded one into a pad, pressed hard. "Docteur, your skill." Blackwood's hands, steady in surgery, trembling now, tore open Victoria's gown. The bullet had entered just below the clavicle, exiting through the scapula. "Through and through," he muttered. "Lung, possibly. We need the surgery now." Reginald lifted his sister as though she weighed nothing. "Which way?" "Guest wing. Sterile room," Blackwood ordered. "Eliza, boil water. Lady Evelyn, brandy." They moved like a desperate parade, Reginald cradling Victoria, Blackwood barking orders, Poirot bringing up the rear, eyes scanning every shadow. The corridor was a tunnel of flickering gas lamps. Snow hissed through the broken window behind them. Halfway to the surgery, Victoria's eyes fluttered. "Marcus!" A bubble of blood formed on her lips. The window, I saw. Her gaze fixed on something beyond them, then rolled back. She went limp. "Faster!" Blackwood shouted. They burst into the makeshift operating theater. An old dressing room lined with white tiles. Reginald laid Victoria on the table. Blackwood scrubbed at a basin, Eliza stoking a spirit lamp beneath a kettle. Poirot closed the door, turned the key. "Locked," he announced. "No one enters. No one leaves." Lady Evelyn arrived with a decanter, hands shaking so violently brandy sloshed over the rim. "Who shot her?" she whispered. "We were all here." Poirot's mind raced, cataloging. The shot had come from outside the study, angle steep, downward. The footprints beneath the window now bore a second set, smaller, lighter, leading away into the storm. size 7, perhaps a woman's boot. The snow had begun again, soft and relentless, already softening the edges. He turned to Blackwood. The bullet, caliber? Blackwood probed the wound with forceps, face grim. 32, I think, clean. He dropped the slug into a kidney dish. It rang like a coin. Not military, sporting rifle, perhaps. Reginald's fists clenched. Father's gun cabinet, downstairs, locked. Keys, Poirot demanded. Father had one. I have another. Reginald's voice cracked. But I haven't touched it since September. Poirot's eyes narrowed. We will check. After. Victoria gasped, a wet, rattling sound. Blackwood packed the wound, threaded a needle with catgut. Hold her, he ordered. Reginald pinned his sister's shoulders. Lady Evelyn gripped her ankles. Eliza hovered with hot water and bandages. Poirot stepped back, observing. The room smelled of iodine, blood, fear. Outside, the wind moaned like a mourning woman. Timing, he murmured. The shot, seconds after the duplicate dagger revealed. Someone listened at the door. Someone knew we were close. Blackwood's needle flashed. Suture first, theories later. Victoria's eyes opened again. The locket, she rasped. Father's locket tucked inside. Her hand fluttered to her throat. The sapphire bracelet was gone, replaced by a thin gold chain. A heart-shaped locket Poirot had not noticed before. He unclasped it gently. Inside, a miniature photograph, Lord Harrington younger smiling, and a folded scrap of paper. Poirot unfolded it with tweezers. If I die, look to the passage behind the library globe. The snow hides everything. A.H. Poirot's pulse quickened. A secret passage. Of course. Victoria's breath hitched. He gave it to me. Yesterday, said, protect it. Her eyes rolled back. The monitor of her pulse faltered. Shock, Blackwood barked. Brandy under the tongue. Lady Evelyn obeyed, tipping a drop between Victoria's lips. The girl coughed, color returning faintly. Poirot pocketed the locket note. She lives, for now. Docteur, you will stay with her. Reginald, guard the door. Lady Evelyn, Eliza, with me. They left Blackwood suturing, Reginald pacing like a caged wolf. In the corridor, Poirot paused. The gun cabinet. Reginald led them downstairs to a paneled room off the billiard hall. The cabinet, solid oak, brass lock, stood intact. Reginald produced a key from his waistcoat. Inside, 3 rifles, 2 shotguns, ammunition neat in boxes, 1 slot empty. 32 Winchester, Reginald said dully. Father's favorite for grouse. Poirot examined the lock. No scratches. Opened with a key. Yours? Reginald shook his head. Mine's here. He showed a second key, untouched. Lady Evelyn whispered, Archibald kept his on a chain round his neck. Poirot's mind flashed to the corpse. No chain. Removed post-mortem, the killer planned this. They returned upstairs. Victoria slept, pale but breathing. Blackwood wiped his brow. She'll live if infection doesn't set in. Poirot gathered them in the library, fire crackling. Snow tapped the windows like impatient fingers. Now, he said, we have 2 crimes. Lord Harrington, stabbed, poisoned, locked room. Victoria, shot from outside. Same killer or accomplice? He produced the locket note. A passage behind the library globe. Madam, you knew of this? Lady Evelyn shook her head. Archibald was secretive. Old houses have priest holes, smugglers' tunnels. Reginald snorted. Father bragged about a passage to the stables. Said it was for emergencies, never showed me. Eliza, hovering, spoke up. I cleaned behind the globe once. There's a panel, loose. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Show us. They moved the heavy oak globe carved with continents, brass meridian. Behind a wooden panel, seams disguised as grain. Poirot pressed. It swung inward on silent hinges. A narrow passage, stone steps spiraling down. Cold air breathed out, smelling of earth and candle smoke. Footprints in dust. Recent 2 sets. One large, Blackwood size 10. One small, Eliza's. Poirot lit a candle. The conjuring trick explained. The killer entered via the passage, stabbed Harrington, exited the same way. Opened the window to suggest escape. Planted footprints outside using boots from the scullery. Walked backwards, smoothed with a branch. Genius. But the shot at Victoria, he paused. From the passage window, perhaps, a clear line to the study. Lady Evelyn gasped. Then the killer is still inside the house. Précisément. Poirot's voice was grim. And Victoria saw them. That is why she was shot. Reginald's face hardened. Blackwood was with us. Blackwood was in surgery, Poirot corrected. But the passage connects to the guest wing. He could have slipped out, fired, returned. Eliza whimpered. I used the passage to bring tea. Master hated stairs, but I never... Poirot raised a hand. We will test. But first, he produced the brass button from earlier. This fell from a greatcoat in the passage. Whose? Reginald examined it. Father's old army coat, hung in the scullery. They descended. The passage twisted, emerging behind the gun cabinet, explaining the missing rifle. A small window overlooked the study lawn. Snow on the sill. Disturbed. Poirot reconstructed. Killer takes rifle, climbs to window, waits. Hears confession about duplicate dagger. Fires. Returns rifle. Exits via scullery. But Victoria lives, Lady Evelyn said. She can identify. Exactly. Poirot's eyes were flint. The next bullet will not miss. He led them back upstairs. Victoria stirred as they entered. The face, she whispered. At the window, I saw... Poirot leaned close. Who, ma petite? Her lips moved. Elle. A tremendous crash shook the manor. The lights flickered, died. Darkness swallowed them. When the emergency lamps flared, the surgery door stood open. Victoria was gone. A single drop of blood led toward the passage. The killer had returned. Chapter 5. Hidden Paths. The surgery door yawned like a wound. The table was empty, sheets soaked crimson. A single drop of blood, bright arterial, hung from the edge, then fell. Plink. Another followed, leading across the parquet toward the open panel behind the linen press. The passage. Poirot's candle guttered in the sudden draft. Mon Dieu! She is taken. Reginald roared, lunging for the dark maw. Vicky! Lady Evelyn clutched Poirot's arm, nails digging through wool. They'll kill her! Eliza stood frozen, eyes wide as saucers. Blackwood, face ashen, hands still bloodied from surgery, pushed past. She can't be moved, the lung... Yet she was, Poirot snapped. Alive or dead, we follow now. He snatched a storm lantern from the wall, lit it with a match. The passage swallowed them. Stone steps slick with meltwater, walls sweating. The blood trail continued. Smudges on the left wall where a dragging hand had steadied, then drops on the treads. Victoria lived. For now. The tunnel narrowed, then forked, left, toward the gun cabinet, right, unknown. The blood went right. Reginald started left. The rifle, no, Poirot said them. The killer wants us divided, together. They descended. The air grew colder, smelling of earth and gun oil. 20 steps down, the passage widened into a chamber. Old wine cellar, racks collapsed, bottles shattered. A single bulb dangled from a wire, swaying. Beneath it, Victoria. She lay on a moth-eaten Persian rug bound with surgical tape, mouth gagged with a linen strip. Her chest rose in shallow, frantic breaths. Fresh blood seeped through Blackwood's sutures, her eyes, wild, pleading, fixed on Poirot. Reginald dropped to his knees. Vicky, hold on. Blackwood knelt opposite, fingers already at her throat. Pulse 120, shock. We need heat. Poirot scanned the chamber. Footprints in the dust, 2 sets, one large. Blackwood size 10, but the tread was different. Hobnails. The other small, Eliza's Sunday boots. A 3rd set, bare feet smeared with blood. Victoria's. Lady Evelyn tore off her sable coat, draped it over the girl. Who did this? Poirot's lantern swept the walls. A wooden crate, lid pried open. Inside, Lord Harrington's army greatcoat, brass buttons, missing one. A .32 Winchester rifle, barrel warm. A box of cartridges, 3 missing. And a leather ledger, spine cracked. He opened it. Pages of cramped handwriting. Debts owed to A. Harrington. Names, dates, sums. Reginald's name, $20,000. Blackwood's father, $50,000, 1914, marked ruined. A final entry, fresh ink. Eliza Thorne. Acknowledgement refused. Inheritance to Salvation Army. Eliza gasped. He wrote that yesterday. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Then the motive crystallizes, but the kidnapping... He turned to Victoria. Blackwood had removed the gag. She coughed blood-flecked foam. The face, she rasped. In the dark, I saw... Poirot leaned close. Who, ma petite? Her lips moved. A metallic click echoed behind them. The bulb exploded in a shower of sparks. Darkness. Reginald shouted, a scuffle, a grunt. The lantern clattered, went out. Poirot struck a match. The chamber was empty save for Victoria, still bound but alone. The others gone. Footprints led deeper into the tunnel, 3 sets, frantic, overlapping. A smear of blood on the wall spelled a single letter in shaking capitals. R. Poirot's mind raced. R for Reginald? Or a lure? He freed Victoria with his penknife, wrapped her in the sable. Can you walk? She nodded, trembling. They took Marcus. Reggie? Poirot supported her. The tunnel sloped upward, ending at a wooden hatch. He pushed. It opened into the scullery. Snow drifted through the open back door. Outside, chaos of footprints, large, small, dragging marks, leading to the stables. Inside the scullery, Blackwood's medical bag flung open, morphine vials smashed, a single hobnail boot print in flour on the flagstones. Victoria sagged. They fought. Someone hit Marcus. Poirot's lantern picked out a trail of blood drops to the stables. He half-carried Victoria through the snow. The stable doors stood ajar. Inside, horses whickered nervously. Hayloft ladders smeared with blood. They climbed. In the loft, Reginald bound and gagged, face bruised. Blackwood beside him, unconscious, a gash above his eye. Lady Evelyn and Eliza, missing. Reginald's eyes blazed over the gag. Poirot freed him. They took Mother and the girl. Said we'd find them at the ice house. Victoria collapsed into her brother's arms. The ice house, Father's old punishment. Poirot's mind clicked. The ice house, stone dome at the estate's edge, used for storing game. Isolated, soundproof. They revived Blackwood with snow to the face. He groaned. Hit me. From behind. Hobnail boots. Whose? Poirot demanded. Blackwood shook his head. Didn't see. They armed themselves. Reginald with a pitchfork, Blackwood a horseshoe, Poirot his cane. Waited. Deadly. Victoria, bandaged, insisted on coming. I won't wait to be next. The storm had returned, wind screaming like banshees. They followed the tracks, deep, purposeful, across the lawn to the ice house. The door stood open, inside darkness and the stench of decay. Lantern light revealed Lady Evelyn and Eliza, bound back-to-back on blocks of ice, mouths gagged. Between them a wooden crate labeled dynamite, handle with care. A fuse snaked to a lantern timer, 10 minutes ticking. Reginald lunged. Mother! Poirot held him back. Trap! The killer wants us all. He examined the fuse. Cuttable, but the timer was booby-trapped. Pull the wrong wire, instant ignition. 8 minutes. Victoria whispered, "The ledger." Father kept explosives for blasting the quarry. Poirot's eyes flicked to the shadows. A figure moved, tall, cloaked in the army greatcoat, face obscured by a wool scarf, hobnail boots. "Show yourself," Poirot called. The figure stepped into the light. Scarf dropped. Eliza's face, older, harder, eyes burning, with hate, not the maid, a stranger. "Surprise," she said, voice flat. "Eliza Thorne is my half-sister. The real Eliza died in childbirth. I took her place. 20 years in this house, scrubbing floors while he lived in luxury." Lady Evelyn muffled a scream. The woman, let us call her false Eliza, raised the 32. "Father promised me everything, then rewrote the will. Salvation Army. I poisoned his whiskey for weeks. The dagger was theatrical. Blackwood's idea, revenge for his father. We planned it together." Blackwood stirred. "Lies. I confessed to the stabbing." "You confessed to what I let you," false Eliza sneered. "You struck the blow, yes, but I locked the door, opened the window, planted the footprints. The dynamite, insurance. When Victoria lived, I took her. When you followed, I took the rest." She gestured to the crate. 6 minutes. Leave now, I shoot the girl. Stay, we all die." Poirot's mind whirred. The timer, simple clockwork. The fuse, standard. But the woman's boots, hobnailed, size 10. She wore Blackwood's stolen boots over her own. He stepped forward. "You planned meticulously, but one error. The blood on the wall. R not for Reginald, for revenge." False Eliza smiled. "Clever Belgian, 4 minutes." Reginald whispered. "The quarry blasting box, remote trigger, in the stable." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Victoria, your locket, the photograph, turn it." Victoria fumbled, revealed a tiny key taped behind the photo. "Father's, for the dynamite safe." False Eliza's composure cracked. "No!" Poirot lunged, cane striking her wrist. The gun flew. Reginald tackled her. Blackwood cut the women free. Victoria inserted the key into the timer. Click. It stopped at 0003. Silence, then sobs. False Eliza thrashed. "He owed me everything." Poirot bound her with baling twine. "You owed him nothing but truth. Instead, you chose betrayal." They emerged into the storm. Dawn bled across the sky, pink on snow. The manor stood silent, secrets thawing. But as they reached the house, a final footprint appeared in the fresh snow, leading into the cellar. Size 7, Eliza's real boot. The true maid was still missing, and the dynamite crate in the ice house was empty. Chapter 6. Poisoned Trust. The manor exhaled. Dawn's pale light crept through broken windows, gilding the blood on the floors. False Eliza, real name Agnes Thorne, was bound in the library, wrists raw from twine, eyes blazing defiance. Reginald stood guard with the pitchfork. Lady Evelyn sat wrapped in blankets, sipping brandy like medicine. Blackwood stitched Victoria's wound anew in the surgery, door locked. Poirot alone moved through the house, lantern swinging, gray cells humming. The dynamite crate in the ice house had been a decoy, empty, wired to a lantern clock. A distraction. The real weapon, Poirot now knew, had never left the study. He returned there. The corpse of Lord Harrington still sprawled across the desk, rigid in death. The crease protruded from his back like a misplaced exclamation mark. Poirot donned gloves, grasped the ivory hilt, and drew the blade free with a soft, wet sigh. The steel was clean. No blood on the inner curve. Impossible. He examined the hilt, carved lotus petals, a hidden seam, a twist, click, the pommel unscrewed. Inside, a hollow cavity, and within that a slender steel pin, no longer than a hat pin, its tip blackened with residue. Poirot sniffed. Bitter almonds, prussic acid, hydrocyanic gas in crystal form. He scraped a flake onto a porcelain saucer, added a drop of water from the carafe. A faint blue ring formed. Potassium ferrocyanide test. Positive. The dagger had been a sheath. The pin, the murder weapon. He reconstructed. The killer entered via the passage, offered Harrington a document to sign. As the Lord bent, the pin, coated with poison, pricked the neck just below the collar. Instant paralysis, death in minutes. The crease was then thrust into the corpse to mislead. The locked door, the open window, the footprints, all theater. Poirot pocketed the pin and returned to the library. Agnes Thorne laughed when she saw his face. Too late, Belgian. The poison's in the blood. You'll never prove... I already have, Poirot said quietly. He laid the pin on the table. Prussic acid. Your fingerprints, I wager, beneath the blood. You prepared it in the scullery, cyanide crystals from the photography darkroom. Eliza, real Eliza, helped you. She is your half-sister, yes, but she believed you acted for her inheritance. Agnes's smile faltered. Lady Evelyn set down her glass. Where is the real Eliza? Poirot's eyes flicked to the cellar door. Hiding. Terrified. She discovered the pin, tried to warn Victoria. That is why she vanished. Reginald's pitchfork lowered. You knew? I suspected. Poirot turned to Agnes. You used Blackwood's grudge, Reginald's debts, Victoria's rebellion, puppets in your passion play. But the pin betrays you. Only someone with access to the darkroom could distill the crystals. Eliza developed photographs for the estate. You stole her key, Agnes spat. He deserved it. Father promised me the world, then left me to scrub floors while his legitimate brats squandered it. Poirot's voice was soft. And Victoria? The gunshot? A warning. She saw me in the passage. I fired to silence her. The dynamite was to bury you all when you came searching. Agnes's eyes gleamed. But I miscalculated. The real Eliza. She ran. She knows too much. A thud from the cellar. Poirot moved like a cat. The others followed. The cellar door stood ajar. Inside, dust, cobwebs, the faint smell of chemicals. A dark room in the corner, trays, bottles, a red safe light. On the workbench, a broken vial labeled KCN, cyanide. Footprints in developer powder led to a coal chute. Open, snow drifted in. Poirot knelt. A single drop of blood. Fresh. And a torn scrap of apron monogrammed E.T. She's hurt, Lady Evelyn whispered. They followed the chute upward. It emerged behind the stables. Tracks in the snow, small, stumbling, leading toward the frozen lake. The lake, half a mile of black ice beneath white drifts. A figure staggered across it. Eliza, real Eliza, apron flapping, one hand pressed to her side. Blood darkened the fabric. Reginald sprinted. Eliza! She turned, eyes wide with terror. Don't! Trap! A crack like a rifle shot. The ice beneath her feet spiderwebbed. She screamed as the surface gave way. Cold water swallowed her to the waist, then the chest. Poirot shouted, Rope! Stable! Blackwood ran. Reginald slid across the ice on his belly, pitchfork extended. Eliza grasped it, but her strength failed. The current beneath dragged her down. Lady Evelyn arrived with a coil of rope. Poirot looped it under his arms, crawled forward. Hold fast! He reached Eliza as she sank. One hand caught her wrist, icy, slick. He hauled. Reginald pulled. Together they dragged her onto solid ice. She coughed lake water, blood bubbling from her side, a shallow cut self-inflicted to leave the trail. I had to run, she gasped. Agnes said if I didn't help, she'd kill you all. She made me forge the appointment book, plant the glove, but when Victoria was shot, tears froze on her lashes. I couldn't. Poirot wrapped her in his coat. The pin. You saw her prepare it? Eliza nodded. In the darkroom. She said it was for rats. I believed her until Father died. They carried her back to the manor. In the library, Agnes's defiance cracked. She's lying. Weak, stupid girl. Enough! Poirot's voice cut like a blade. The pin, the cyanide, the darkroom key, your fingerprints, your boots, your sister's testimony. The snow melts, Agnes. So do alibis. He turned to the others. But one mystery remains. The locket note. Look to the passage behind the library globe. Victoria said her father gave it yesterday. Yet he died at midnight. How? Victoria, pale but conscious, spoke from the doorway, supported by Blackwood. He gave it to me at tea. Said if anything happened, trust Poirot. He knew someone planned murder. Poirot's mustache twitched. Then Lord Harrington suspected Agnes. The will's codicil, disinheritance for disloyalty, was a trap. He left clues to expose her. Reginald's voice was hoarse. So father played us all? No, Poirot said. He played the murderer and lost. Silence fell, broken only by the drip of melting snow from the eaves. Agnes lunged suddenly, snatching the pin from the table. If I die, you all... Reginald's pitchfork caught her wrist. The pin flew, embedding in the carpet. Poirot retrieved it calmly. Checkmate, mademoiselle. Outside, the storm broke. Sunlight speared through the clouds, turning the snow to diamonds. Police, sirens wailed in the distance. Roads cleared at last. But as the constables arrived, Poirot noticed one final detail. The brass button from the greatcoat, earlier found in the passage, was now missing from his pocket. And in the melting snow by the front door, a single set of footprints, size 7, led away from the manor toward the village. Eliza's boots. The real maid had vanished again. Poirot's eyes narrowed. The game, it seemed, was not yet over. Chapter 7, The Pin of Deceit. The library stank of brandy, blood, and betrayal. Agnes Thorne, false Eliza, sat trussed in a Windsor chair, wrists purple, eyes feral. 2 constables flanked her, notebooks open. Outside, the snow melted in rivulets, carrying the night's sins toward the drains. Poirot stood before the fire, the poisoned pin held aloft between gloved thumb and forefinger. Behold, he declared, the true weapon, not the Chris spectacle. This pin, coated with prussic acid, delivered death in a heartbeat. The dagger was thrust post-mortem to mislead. A classic misdirection. Chief Inspector Japp arrived with the plows, scratched his head. But the locked room, the footprints, all illusion, Poirot said. Agnes entered via the passage behind the globe, pricked Harrington as he signed a forged document, locked the door with a duplicate key, opened the window, planted footprints backward using stolen boots. The kriss was inserted to suggest brute force. The poison ensured silence. Agnes laughed, a cracked sound. Prove it. Poirot laid the pin on the blotter. Fingerprints, yours beneath the blood. Cyanide residue matches the darkroom vial. Your sister Eliza's testimony. Eliza's gone, Agnes spat. Fled like the coward she is. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Précisément. And therein lies the final deceit. He turned to the assembly. Lady Evelyn, hollow-eyed. Reginald, knuckles white on the pitchfork. Victoria, bandaged but upright. Blackwood, hands still stained with antiseptic. The real Eliza, rescued from the lake, stood shivering in a blanket guarded by a constable. Poirot addressed her. You vanished again, ma petite. Why? Eliza's voice trembled. Agnes said she'd kill them all if I didn't run. She gave me the brass button. Said plant it to frame Dr. Blackwood. I threw it in the snow instead. Poirot nodded. The button I found in the passage, then lost from my pocket. You stole it back, yes? To protect someone. Eliza's eyes filled. To protect him. She pointed at Blackwood. He's my father. Gasps rippled. Blackwood paled. What? Poirot's voice was gentle. Lord Harrington's affair with your mother, Eliza. 20 years ago. Agnes was the elder sister, sent to an orphanage. You were kept as a maid out of guilt. Blackwood, your half-brother, discovered the truth last year. He came to confront Harrington, not to kill. Blackwood sank into a chair. I struck him in anger. The crease was in my hand. But he was alive when I left. I swear it. Agnes sneered. Liar! You stabbed him. I only added the pin. Insurance. Poirot raised a hand. The wound, doctor, describe it. Blackwood swallowed. Superficial. Between the shoulder blades, but not deep. He laughed. Said I hadn't the guts. I fled. Poirot turned to Jap. The Cree in the corpse. Measure the depth. A constable withdrew the blade. 6 inches of steel, blood to the hilt. But the entry wound when re-examined was shallow, 2 inches. The blade had been thrust deeper after death. Agnes, Poirot said, finished what Blackwood began. The pin paralyzed, the deeper thrust masked the poison, but one detail betrays you both. He produced the locket note. Harrington wrote this at tea yesterday, yet the ink is fresh, the paper warm, impossible unless... He unfolded a second scrap from his pocket, identical handwriting. The snow hides everything. Eliza, Poirot said, you forged the first note to lure us to the passage. Agnes dictated it, but Harrington's real message was verbal, to Victoria. The locket was a decoy. Victoria touched the chain. He whispered, trust Poirot. The globe. Nothing written. Poirot nodded. The note in the locket planted by Agnes to explain the passage. But the paper matches the darkroom stationery, Eliza's domain. Eliza wept. She made me. Said she'd kill Mother if I refused. Lady Evelyn's voice was steel. Your mother, my husband's mistress, died in childbirth. I knew. I kept you on as penance. Silence fell, heavy as the melting snow. Poirot continued. The gunshot at Victoria. Agnes from the passage window, the dynamite. Distraction. The icehouse trap. Improvised when we followed. But the pin... He held it to the light. The residue is not pure prussic acid. It is mixed with oil of bitter almonds. Photographer's toner. Eliza's formula. You both touched it. Jap stepped forward. Agnes Thorne, murder. Eliza Thorne, accessory. Dr. Blackwood, assault. Reginald Harrington, forgery. Lady Evelyn, conspiracy to conceal. Reginald protested. I forged nothing. Poirot produced the appointment book. The entry, meeting with Artaud, your handwriting, monsieur. You met Harrington at 11 to beg for money. He refused. You left in rage. Blackwood entered at 11:15. Argument. Superficial stab. Agnes at 11:30. Pin and final thrust. Reginald's face crumpled. I didn't know he'd die, Blackwood whispered. I thought I'd only wounded him. Agnes laughed hysterically. Amateurs, I made it art. Poirot's eyes were flint. Art requires a signature. Yours is on the pin, the vial, the darkroom key found in your apron pocket. He produced the key, dangling like a noose. Jap cuffed Agnes. Anything to say? She lunged, teeth bared. He owed me a life! The constable restrained her. Eliza was led away, sobbing. Blackwood stared at his hands, surgeon's hands now trembling. Victoria spoke, voice small. What happens to us? Poirot's tone softened. The will. Read it. Lady Evelyn produced the document, the codicil. If any heir is proved disloyal, the estate passes to Eliza Thorne, acknowledged daughter. Harrington had known. The Salvation Army clause, a bluff to flush the traitor. Reginald laughed bitterly. So the maid inherits? Non, Poirot said. Eliza renounces. She wishes only freedom. The estate divides equally minus debts. You will survive, but not in luxury. Outside, the snow was gone. Muddy lawns steamed in the sun. Police vans crunched on gravel. Jap tipped his hat. Neatly done, Poirot. Poirot's mustache twitched. Order and method, mon ami. As the prisoners were loaded, Poirot noticed one final detail. The brass button, missing earlier, now lay on the hall table. Beside it, a fresh footprint in melting slush, size 7 leading out. He picked up the button. On the reverse, scratched with a pin. Thank you. Eliza had left her mark, and her freedom. Poirot pocketed the button. The manor stood empty, secrets thawed. But in the village, a girl in a maid's coat walked toward the train station, head high, apron discarded in the mud. The snow had melted. The betrayal was buried. Or was it? A final envelope lay on the hall stand, addressed in Eliza's hand, Monsieur Poirot, open when alone. He waited until the cars departed. Inside, a single photograph, Lord Harrington smiling, arm around a young maid. On the back, he loved me after all. The pin was mercy, forgive me. Poirot's eyes misted. He burned the note in the library fire. The human heart, he reflected, was the greatest mystery of all. Chapter 8. The Unveiling. The drawing room had been stripped of its Christmas finery. Holly lay trampled on the rug. The tree stood crooked, needles shedding like tears. Sunlight, thin winter pale, slanted through the tall windows, laying bars of gold across the assembled company. They sat in a half-circle as though awaiting judgment. Lady Evelyn, spine rigid in black silk. Reginald, unshaven, eyes bloodshot. Victoria, pale but steady, a bandage hidden beneath a shawl. Dr. Marcus Blackwood, hands folded, knuckles white. The real Eliza Thorne, apron gone, dressed in Victoria's cast-off coat, and Agnes Thorne, wrists cuffed to a constable's belt, her glare a living flame. Chief Inspector Japp leaned against the mantel, pipe unlit, respect for the dead or for Poirot. 2 constables flanked the door. Outside, the last police van idled, engine ticking as it cooled. Poirot stood at the center, small, immaculate, the poisoned pin now sealed in a glass vial on the table like a museum relic. He surveyed them with the calm of a priest before absolution. Mesdames et messieurs, he began, voice soft yet carrying to the rafters, we have danced a grim tarantella through this house of snow and secrets. A patriarch dead, a daughter shot, a maid vanished and returned. Dynamite, passages, footprints that walk to nowhere. But order emerges from chaos and method from madness. Tonight, the curtain falls. He lifted the vial. The weapon, prussic acid on a pin hidden in the kris's hilt. Death in seconds, the dagger thrust later deeper to mislead. The locked room, the open window, the backward footprints, all stagecraft. Agnes sneered. You've said this. Poirot's eyes flicked to her. Patience, mademoiselle. The play has an epilogue. He turned to Blackwood. Docteur, you struck the first blow, superficial in rage. You believed you left Harrington alive. You fled, conscience aflame. Blackwood nodded, throat working. I did. Reginald, Poirot continued, you forged the appointment book, begged for money, stormed out at 11:15. You saw the light still on. Reginald's voice was hoarse. I thought he'd ring for Eliza. Lady Evelyn, Poirot said, you knew of the affair, kept Eliza as penance, rewrote the will in your mind 1,000 times. She lifted her chin. I endured. Victoria, Poirot said gently, you loved Blackwood, defied your father, received the locket with its whispered warning. Victoria touched the chain. He knew he was marked. Poirot's gaze settled on Eliza. And you, ma petite, born of love, raised in servitude, forged notes under duress, planted the brass button, fled across the ice to save them all. Eliza's eyes brimmed. I only wanted him to acknowledge me. Poirot raised a hand. All true, all part of the truth. But the architect, the one who turned rage, guilt, and greed into murder, was you, Agnes Thorne. Agnes lunged against her cuffs. Lies! Poirot produced the darkroom key, dangling it like a hypnotist's coin. Your key. Your cyanide, your toner on the pin, your boots, stolen from Blackwood, worn over your own to make the phantom prints. You entered at 11:30 via the passage, found Harrington paralyzed but breathing. Blackwood's shallow stab had not killed. You finished him with the pin, thrust the cryst deeper, locked the door with the duplicate you'd had cut months ago. Jap stepped forward. Duplicate key, found in her apron lining. Agnes spat. Circumstantial. Poirot smiled thinly. Then let us add science. He gestured to a constable who brought a tray. The crease, the pin, a magnifying glass. The blood on the crease, 2 layers. The first, superficial, Blackwood's strike. The second, deeper post-mortem, yours. The pinprick at the neck hidden by the collar matches the poison residue. Time of death, 11:35. Eliza brought whiskey at 11. Harrington was alive. Blackwood left at 11:20. You, Agnes, were seen by no one because you used the passage. He turned to Eliza. You discovered. The pin in the dark room confronted Agnes. She threatened your mother's grave. Desecration if you spoke. You forged the locket note to lure us to the passage, hoping we'd find her. When Victoria was shot, you cut yourself, left the blood trail, fled to force our hand. Eliza nodded, tears falling. I couldn't let her kill again. Poirot faced Agnes. The gunshot. Your .32 from the passage window, the dynamite, stolen from the quarry shed, wired to a clock. The ice house trap, improvised when we followed Eliza. You took Victoria to silence her, took the others to bury us all. But Eliza's escape across the lake, her message in blood, R for rescue, undid you. Agnes's defiance cracked. He owed me. A lifetime scrubbing his floors while his bastards drank champagne. Poirot's voice was ice. You owed him justice, not murder. The will, read it aloud, Lady Evelyn. She unfolded the document, voice trembling. To my daughter Eliza Thorne, acknowledge this day the estate in totality should any other heir prove disloyal. To Agnes Thorne, should she return, nothing, her mother's shame buried with her. He knew, Agnes. He knew you'd come for revenge. Agnes screamed, a raw animal sound. The constables dragged her back. Poirot continued, relentless. The brass button, planted by Eliza to frame Blackwood, stolen back by her to protect him. The locket photograph, Harrington's last gift to Victoria, proof he loved even the child he could not claim. The envelope Eliza left me. He produced it, the burned corner still warm. A confession. She forgave him. You never did. Jap nodded. Charges filed. Courts will sort the rest. Poirot's gaze swept them. The snow hid everything. Footprints, blood, truth. But snow melts. And what remains is this. A family shattered, a maid freed, a doctor broken, a sister hanged. He placed the vial on the mantel. The pin of deceit, sealed forever. Outside, the vans pulled away. Agnes's screams faded into the dusk. Eliza embraced Victoria, then Reginald, then, hesitant, Lady Evelyn. Blackwood stood apart, staring at his hands. Poirot addressed them one last time. Go, rebuild. But remember, betrayal begins in the heart and ends in the light. As they dispersed, Poirot lingered. On the hall table lay the brass button returned by Eliza. He turned it over, the scratched thank you now joined by a new word, etched with the same pin. Forgive. He slipped it into his pocket. The manor was silent. The snow was gone. The case was closed. Or was it? In the village, a train whistle sounded. A girl in a maid's coat, apron discarded, head high, boarded the London Express. In her pocket, a single photograph and a ticket to a new life. Poirot watched from the window, moustache twitching. Bon voyage, ma petite. The world is wide and the snow will fall again, but never the same. He turned the button in his fingers, then let it fall into the fire. The flames took it and the last secret with it. Chapter 9. The final betrayal. The drawing room was empty now. The fire had sunk to embers. The vial with the poisoned pin stood sentinel on the mantel like a glass coffin. Poirot lingered alone, turning the brass button's absence in his mind. The button had burned, the photograph with it, Eliza's forgiveness sealed in ash. Yet something gnawed, something off, like a violin string tuned a semitone sharp. He returned to the study. Lord Harrington's corpse had been removed, but the desk remained, blotter-stained, chair askew, the crease now bagged as evidence. Poirot knelt, lantern low. A faint scratch on the parquet caught his eye, 3 parallel lines, fresh. He followed them to the hearth. Beneath the andirons, a loose flagstone. He pried it up. Inside, a small tin box, locked. The key, the duplicate door key Agnes had used, fit perfectly. He opened it. Inside, a single sheet of vellum folded thrice. Harrington's hand, ink still crisp. If you read this, I am dead. The murderer is not Agnes alone. Blackwood is her creature. He struck first to wound, she to kill. But the mind behind both, the one who forged my will, who hid the cyanide years ago, is Evelyn, my wife. She discovered my affair in 1915, waited 20 years for vengeance. Trust no one. The snow buries but never forgets. A.H. Poirot's breath clouded in the cold room. Evelyn. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate behind him. He closed the box, slipped it into his coat. Lady Evelyn stood in the doorway, sable coat over her shoulders, a small revolver steady in her gloved hand. You always were thorough, Monsieur Poirot. He rose slowly. Madame, you should be with your children. They are not my children. Her voice was winter itself. Victoria, yes, Reginald, Archibald's indiscretion with the typist, but Eliza, the maid's bastard? I kept her to torment him. Every scrubbed floor was my revenge. Poirot's eyes never left the gun. You planned this for 20 years. Longer. She stepped closer. I found his letters in 1914, burned them. Then I waited. Agnes was my tool, bitter, hungry. I sent her to the orphanage, brought her back as false Eliza. Blackwood, ruined by Archibald's greed, was easy. I whispered of inheritance, of justice. He stabbed in rage. Agnes finished with the pin. I locked the door from the outside with the master key, then joined the screams. Poirot's mind raced. The will, forged by me, the codicil, my invention. Archibald's real will left everything to Victoria with trusts for the others. I burned it in the boiler. The Salvation Army clause. To goad Agnes into action. The gunshot at Victoria. To silence her. She saw me in the passage, adjusting the crease. I fired from the library globe, silencer made from a perfume bottle. The dynamite. I planted it years ago for this night. Poirot's voice was calm. And Eliza's escape? I let her run. She was never the threat, but you, Evelyn's eyes glittered. You were unexpected. She raised the revolver. The snow is gone. The roads are open. I'll say you confessed. Blackwood's accomplice, driven mad by guilt. A tragic end for the great Poirot. He took one step sideways toward the window. You forget, madame. I sent a telegram from the village telephone, before the storm broke. Jap has men outside. Her smile was thin. Bluff. A whistle pierced the dusk. 3 short blasts. Police. Jap's voice boomed. Poirot? Lady Evelyn? Evelyn's hand wavered. Poirot lunged, cane striking her wrist. The gun flew, skittering across the floor. He pinned her arm behind her back as constables burst in. Jap cuffed her. Lady Evelyn Harrington. Murder, conspiracy, forgery. She laughed, a sound like breaking ice. You'll never prove... Poirot produced the tin box. Lord Harrington's true confession hidden beneath the hearth. Your fingerprints on the forged will found in your jewelry box wrapped in your monogrammed handkerchief. The cyanide vial, your perfume bottle, residue inside. The master key, your spare, kept in your chatelaine. Evelyn's composure shattered. He deserved it. 20 years of humiliation. Jap hauled her away. Her screams echoed down the corridor. I was the snow. I buried him. Poirot stood alone as the vans departed. The study felt larger now, hollowed by truth. He returned to the drawing room. The others waited. Victoria, Reginald, Blackwood, Eliza. Jap had released them pending formal charges, Blackwood for assault, Reginald for forgery, Eliza for accessory, suspended, Victoria unscathed. Victoria spoke first. Mother? Poirot's voice was gentle. The architect. Your father suspected left the tin box as insurance. She used you all, Agnes's rage, Blackwood's grudge, Eliza's fear, your rebellion. Reginald sank into a chair. So the estate, yours, Poirot said. The true will, found with the box, divides it equally. Eliza included. Debts paid. You will rebuild. Blackwood's voice was raw. I struck him. I thought, you wounded pride, not life. Poirot patted his shoulder. Redeem yourself, Docteur. Marry the girl. Heal. Victoria embraced Eliza. Sister, Eliza wept. I never wanted... Shh. Victoria smiled through tears. You saved us. Outside, the sun set blood-red over the muddy lawns. The manor stood scarred but standing. Poirot gathered his coat. Jap offered a ride to the station. Coming? In a moment. Poirot lingered in the hall. On the table, the brass button returned again. This time, no scratch. Just a single word etched in Eliza's hand. Home. He smiled, pocketed it. As the car pulled away, he saw them in the doorway. Victoria and Blackwood, hand in hand. Reginald lighting a cigarette, offering one to Eliza. The four of them. Fractured, forgiven, family. The snow was gone. The betrayal was buried. But in Poirot's pocket, the button warmed against his heart. A reminder. Some secrets thaw. Some freeze forever. He leaned back, closed his eyes. The train whistle sounded in the distance. London, then Belgium, then the next case. The game, as always, was never truly over. Chapter 10. Thawing Truths. The manor was quiet at last. The police vans had gone, the snow had melted into the earth, the blood had been scrubbed from the parquet. Only the scent of beeswax and old grief remained. Hercule Poirot stood in the library, the true will spread beneath the green-shaded lamp. The others had gathered one final time, not as suspects, but as heirs. Victoria sat beside Blackwood, her hand in his, the bandage hidden beneath a sleeve of soft wool. Reginald leaned against the mantel, cigarette unlit between his fingers. Respect for the house, or for the dead. Eliza Thorne, no longer a maid, wore a simple gray dress borrowed from Victoria's wardrobe. Her eyes, once downcast, now met the world levelly. Lady Evelyn was absent, locked in the village jail, her sable coat confiscated as evidence. Poirot's voice was soft, almost tender. The final act, mes amis, Lord Harrington's true will, hidden beneath the hearth with his confession. Read it, Lady Evelyn's forgery burned. This is his voice from beyond the grave. He lifted the vellum. The ink had browned, but the words stood clear. To my wife Evelyn, nothing. She has taken enough. To my son Reginald, my London house, debts paid on condition he never gambles again. To my daughter Victoria, the manor, the lands, the investments. Marry whom you will. To my daughter Eliza Thorne, acknowledged this day, £10,000 and the dower cottage. Live free. To Dr. Marcus Blackwood, my apology and the medical practice in the village. Heal. The rest to charity, save the Salvation Army, they preach too loudly. If betrayal is proved, all to Eliza, she is the only innocent. Archibald Harrington, 20th of December, 1935. Silence pooled, thick as the dusk outside. Reginald exhaled, a sound between laugh and sob. The old bastard, he forgave me. Victoria's eyes brimmed. He knew about Marcus, he approved. Eliza touched the page as though it might vanish. He called me daughter. Blackwood's voice was rough. He gave me a future. Poirot folded the will gently. He suspected Evelyn's hatred, Agnes's rage. He left clues, the locket whisper, the tin box, the codicil bluff, to trap the guilty and free the innocent. The snow was his ally. It preserved the footprints, the blood, the truth. He placed the document in Victoria's hands. Yours to execute. The estate is solvent, debts paid by the investments. You will not be rich, but you will be whole. Victoria looked at each of them, her brother, her love, her sister. We stay together. The manor is big enough. Reginald nodded. I'll manage the farms, no more cards. Blackwood squeezed Victoria's hand. I'll reopen the surgery, free clinic for the village. Eliza smiled, tentative. I'll keep the cottage, but I'll visit often. Poirot watched them, his little gray cells quiet for once. The puzzle was complete. Every piece, pin, passage, footprints, forged will, locked into place. Evelyn had orchestrated murder. Agnes had executed it. Blackwood had ignited it. Eliza had redeemed it. Harrington, in death, had directed the final scene. He moved to the window. The lawn steamed in the last light. Crocuses pushed through the mud, defiant green spears. Spring, already. A soft footstep. Eliza approached, holding a small parcel wrapped in brown paper. For you, monsieur. From us all. He unwrapped it. A silver cigarette case engraved with his initials and a single snowflake. Inside, a note in 4 handwritings. Thank you. The snow melted. We did not. V.R.M.A. Poirot's mustache twitched. Pleasure, not vanity. You honor me. Victoria joined them. Will you stay for dinner? Cook returned. Roast beef, no storms. He considered. Tempting. But the train to London waits and beyond the world. Mysteries do not solve themselves. Reginald offered his hand. You saved us, Poirot. More than the law. Blackwood followed. You gave me back my soul. Eliza embraced him, brief, fierce. You gave me a name. Poirot bowed over her hand, Belgian gallantry intact. You gave yourselves freedom, ma petite. I merely held the lantern. He donned his coat, his Homburg, his gloves. Jap's car idled at the door. The family stood on the steps to see him off. 4 figures against the great house, no longer prisoners of snow or secrets. As the car pulled away, Poirot looked back. Victoria raised the will like a banner. Reginald lit his cigarette at last. Blackwood kissed Victoria's temple. Eliza waved, gray dress bright against the dusk. The manor shrank in the rear window, then vanished around a bend. Mud splashed the wheels, rooks wheeled overhead. Poirot leaned back, the silver case warm in his pocket. Jap glanced over. Another triumph, eh? Poirot's eyes half closed. A restoration, mon ami. Justice is cold. Mercy thaws. The train station appeared. Smoke, steam, the promise of motion. Poirot stepped onto the platform, ticket in hand. A porter took his valise. The London Express waited, pistons hissing like impatient dragons. He boarded, found his compartment, settled by the window. The whistle blew. The train lurched forward. Fields blurred past, brown, wet, alive. In his pocket, the brass button, returned one last time by Eliza, pressed against the cigarette case. He drew it out. On the reverse, a final etching, tiny but clear, a snowflake, and beneath it, truth. He smiled, slipped it beside the note, and closed the case. The train gathered speed, London, then Dover, then the Channel, then home. But in his mind, the manor lingered, its passages sealed, its wounds cauterized, its heirs reborn. Outside, the first star pricked the sky. Poirot watched it until the rhythm of the rails lulled him. The human heart, he reflected, was the greatest mystery and the greatest redemption. The snow had melted, the betrayal was buried, the truth endured. He slept and dreamed of crocuses pushing through white drifts, green against impossible odds.